Hi friends! Very excited to bring you this tutorial today, but before we dig into things, I wanted to walk through everything that you'll need to achieve this effect. So starting with our clays, I'll be working today with Cernit Opaline in white and Cernit Translucent. If you don't have Cernit, you could definitely use Sculpey. So to achieve an opaline, I would mix up a little bit of some Sculpey Premo Translucent with a little bit of white. And then for translucent, I would do the Sculpey Premo Translucent and add just the tiniest pinch of blue because the Sculpey Translucent tends to go a little bit more yellow. But I don't have that problem with Cernit, so that's why I'm going to go with this today. I also find that Cernit Translucent just gives me a little bit clearer of a translucency. So that's it for our clays. The other additive that I'll be using today is this embossing glaze. And this is one of the Tim Holtz Distress embossing glazes, and this is in the color Vintage Photo. You don't have to use this exact color. This is just kind of a brown, and I wanted something a little bit kind of like dirty looking, so that's why I went with this one. Um, Materials wise, I'm using some of my favorite transfer papers that are available on my Etsy shop. I have three different packs that look kind of like this abstract sort of dotted watercolor looking pattern. But what I like about these is you get a lot of color variation, and that's what we're going to want. And you also get contrast with these dots. So it just adds a little bit of visual interest. So I'll be using one of these in the technique that I show you today. We also are going to be using a cling stamp, and this is fairly large. It's basically the size of my tile that I'm going to be working on. But this is the sort of wavy, very organic pattern that it gives you. So this is what it looks like. I believe I picked this up from Michael's or maybe even on Amazon. But I will link to everything in the description below so that you have that. I also have a little brush, and what I don't have out is cornstarch, and that's just going to work as like a release agent for the cling stamp so that I don't rip up the clay after I apply the stamp. Speaking of applying the stamp, I'll be using this acrylic block to help provide some even pressure when I am impressing the stamp onto my clay. And then kind of the basics here, I have my tissue blade, I have my acrylic roller, I have my pasta machine over here to the side, I have my tile to work on that is able to go straight into the oven. And then I have, you can use whatever cutters you'd like, but I'm just using some cardstock templates that I created myself, along with my X-Acto knife. So that is about everything that you'll be needing. We can also talk about finishing with a kind of a gold finish around the edges of our pieces toward the end. I want to evaluate what the pieces look like first and then decide if we want to give it that treatment at the end. And if we do, I can talk through what you'll need for that. All right, so as I mentioned, we are going to be working with Cernit Opaline, and I've gone ahead and conditioned that and rolled it out on a 4 on my Atlas 180. So it's toward the thicker end, but it's not too thick. And you can see I'm just trying to gently get that laid down on my tile, and I'm just doing it kind of a little bit at a time to try and avoid capturing too many air bubbles. And I find that smoothing it out that way little by little helps, but you can see I've still got some there, but certainly not the end of the world if you run into that. From here, I'm just going to take my roller and give it a good roll, make sure everything is adhered, and then I'll turn it around this way and go the opposite direction here. And at this point, I'm now ready to apply my transfer. And with these particular transfers, I can't speak to every transfer, but the ones that I create, they're on a little bit thicker of a paper so that they hold more ink, which I personally really like. And they need, I would say, to sit at least for 45 minutes before you remove them. I'm probably going to have mine sit for a little bit longer. It's really up to you and your schedule. So I think what I'm going to go with, just kind of looking and thinking about my end pieces here. I'm torn between these two. I really like them both. But thinking about the space I have here and sort of the color variety, I think I'm going to actually go with this one. So sorry if I broke your heart with that choice. And I just want to kind of figure out how much room I have so I don't waste my whole transfer here. And I'm going to cut it to size. And that should cover everything. So I'm just going to lay it down and use my finger, kind of like how I applied the clay, to be honest. And I just like to sort of burnish that on to the clay. And you don't want to skimp on this. Don't just lay it down and call it a day, because that, you know, it's a little risky. Not saying it wouldn't work, but it's probably not going to work as well as you would like. And then I like to make sure I go around the edges, just making sure those are all nice and adhered. And once I feel like I've got it really good, then I'm going to take my roller and go across and across the other way. All right, so like I mentioned, I'm going to let this sit. It'll probably be at least an hour and a half before I remove this. So our transfer has sat on top of the clay for about 3.5 hours. And that's more than enough time, but I am just now circling back to it. So my favorite way to actually remove the paper and the paper pulp is just to come in and gently pour, just regular faucet water, nothing too complicated. Try not to make a mess, but I always end up making a mess. And you'll want to make sure that the paper is fully saturated. You'll see the pulp kind of rising to the top there. So I give it a minute to kind of catch up as it spreads. And one area that I've noticed that people can kind of find themselves struggling when it comes to transfers is that they aren't being generous enough with the water. You need to have quite a good amount of water to get this off, especially with the thickness of the paper that my particular transfers use. So you're not going to hurt it by adding too much water. So err on the side of more is more, and don't underdo it, because that's when you can run into some issues. So as you see, I just keep adding more and more. And you can kind of, when you see it in person, you can tell how it spreads throughout. And I like to give it some time, but I want you to see this in real time so that you understand. Like, we always see it sped up in reels, and it's like, oh, cool, you just add the water and wipe it away really quickly. And that's, at least in my experience, that's not really the best practice here. So let it kind of marinate, do its thing. And then I just kind of clean up the extra water as it floods off. That's probably just a personal preference, but I feel like this has been a good amount of time. And you can tell the water is already kind of overflowing as I adjust my tile. But the way I like to do it, you always see people, and I started doing it this way too, just rubbing it off with their finger. What I've found is actually a much cleaner way to do it, and hopefully it works, because I'm gonna look stupid if I do it now and it doesn't work. But I like to just have it on my small tile and then tilt it so that it just runs off. So we're gonna tilt because that clay is stuck to your tile. So you see how that just ran right off. And if you get clumps like this that are a little more stubborn, just add a bit more water, let it get on there, and then it should run right off. You can see I somehow missed a little spot here. I don't know if there was something funny on the clay or if there was an air bubble where I just, ran into a pocket where I didn't get it, but that's okay. We can work around it. The other 99% of the transfer looks really good. Okay. Perfect. So now we're left with an ultra clean, minus the one spot, beautiful transfer. And if there are still more stubborn spots where the pulp did not just kind of slide away, you can go to your sink under really light pressure and put it under the faucet, and it'll sort of work to push without you having to get your hand in there, because your hand can smear things, as we all know. So those are just some fun tips working with transfers, and I hope you find them helpful. So I'm gonna get this area cleaned up and we will move on to our next step. Okay, the next step here is going to be to prep the clay. So I'm just going to take my paper towel here and very gently, I'm trying to pick up any of the moisture that was left behind. Also, if your paper towel is a little bit damp, you can sort of pick up any of the extra pulp that you might come across on your transfer. And it's always good to get down lower to see where the little water droplets are, because they're hard to see when you're looking straight on, but then when you come in more at an angle like that, you can really see where they are. All right, so that is looking pretty solid to me. Now, at this point, what we're going to do is grab our Distress Embossing Glaze. Carefully open that up, probably not right over your clay so that it doesn't accidentally spill everywhere. And then I'm just gonna go straight in with my hand, my fingers, pinch a little bit, and I'm just going to sprinkle it around like so. And I'm not going to do a ton, because what we're actually going to do with this is almost create a sort of like a double layer effect. So you'll see what that looks like here momentarily. So we're going to start with that, and then you can put your embossing glaze to the side. Then what I'm going to do is come in. Well, make sure your hands are clean first. Always a good rule of thumb. I'm actually going to, now that I'm thinking out loud, I'm gonna take this and I'm very gently spreading it out just to make sure there aren't any big clumps of it. Perfect. Very minor, but just the little things tend to make the difference. Okay, so now over here, I have already rolled out on my pasta machine a sheet of translucent in a 4, and it's about the same size as my sheet that I already have laid down. And I'm going to very carefully adhere that slowly to my base. And hopefully by using the roller, you can avoid air bubbles, but sometimes they are inevitable, of course. So I'm just going to come in my X-Acto on those, get that air out as much as I can. Pretty good. And then I'm going to give that another roll, back and forth, just like that. We almost got all of them in the first round. Very close. And this doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be. We don't want it to look too perfect. All right. Now from here, what we're going to do is start to prepare. I'm going to scoot this out of the way. Prepare our stamp. So I'm going to get an idea of how much of the stamp I actually need. It looks like the corner would be about here. So I'm just going to start kind of dropping this cornstarch in and patting it in. This particular stamp tends to be very, very sticky. So I'm kind of overdoing it just because of the experience I've had with it in the past. It likes to lift the clay up, but I'm sure depending on whatever type of embossing tool, debossing, embossing, somebody in the comments will let me know. However you're adding your texture, how about that? However you're adding your texture, you know, I'm sure you'll get some sort of tricky situation to deal with, but cornstarch, I know some folks like to use baby powder, obviously making sure there's no talc in there, but yeah, totally up to you. I feel like this is looking pretty good. I always forget the outside edges, and then somehow that always comes back to bite me, so I'm gonna make sure I've got all that taken care of too. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So that's prepared. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come back in with my second round of the distressing powder, glaze powder, whatever you like to call it. And I'm going to very, very sparsely. It's not even that it's sparse. I don't know how to explain it really, but it's I just want it to be varied. So like more concentrated in some areas and then less concentrated in others. So it doesn't feel equal. So like I've got an area here, 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 probably about where I'll take, if I do like 4 pieces out of this. So I've just got variation. It's not a uniform spread throughout. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. Now, the hope is that, you know, this will pop pretty well and complement the colors underneath. Well, we'll kind of see. So I'm just gonna gently try to roll this in so that it doesn't lift up with the stamp once we drop that in. All right. All right, so I've brought you in a little bit closer here. And I'm going to take my stamp and make sure I'm aligned here on top of my clay, hold it in place. And I'm gonna use my acrylic block. You can use your roller too. I just tend to like the block more. And just get that even pressure. And I'm kind of going all around. And then we're going to say a prayer and peel this back. And it's lovely. It turned out really, really well. That looks great. I probably could have gone a little heavier up in this corner, but I am not going to complain. I think that looks really, really good. From here, I'm going to grab your cutter or whatever. I would definitely make sure with your cutter, if you're using them, dip them in water or cornstarch to get nice clean cuts. You're going through a couple layers, you've got some ink down there. So just being cognizant of that. I need to figure out what shapes I even want to do, which I think I'll do. I mean, I really do like this shape, so I'm gonna go with a couple of these, and then maybe we can do some small abstract circles too. And with this, I don't try to make it perfect, you guys. I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm very much a seeker of perfection. I'm just a seeker of beautiful, pretty things. And if pretty means perfect to you, then absolutely strive for that. But that's not me. And then I'm going to take out this inside section as well. Just like that. And lift up. And we've still got our, you have to, with these little templates, you have to be kind of careful. So like with that one, I pressed down probably a little too hard. So you just need to make sure that you don't press out your pattern, because it's really hard to, especially with that stamp, to line that back up. And where did my start go? Right here. Okay. That, and then again, we're just going roughly, sorry, the light keeps changing on me outside. Here, here, to here. And then we'll be able to clean these up, but the idea is just to get a good start there. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just gonna do these two. And again, you can clean this stuff up after the fact when we go in to sand and everything, which I don't think I'm gonna show just because I think, you know, sanding is pretty standard. But if you want a tutorial on that, I actually have a really good one on sanding and buffing in my Patreon. So that's always available. All right, so I feel bad not using the rest of this. So let's just do some cute little abstract circle things. So there's one poorly made circle. And another poorly made circle. And maybe I'll do some little long oval-y dangle type things here. Just because we can, right? So we're here and we can. And then maybe that way I can experiment with some different finishes too. Okay, so this will probably be a little bit of a beast to, maybe not. Thought it was going to be tricky for me to pull this off of here, and it wasn't at all, so that's nice. All right, so I'm going to take this straight on the tile and drop it into the oven for the recommended amount of time. So I'll probably actually go like 40 minutes maybe. And yeah, we'll go 40 at 265, I think, right? Yes, 265 for Cernit. But yeah, just bake according to the directions that you have on whatever clay you're using. And then we will take a look once things are out of the oven and finish these up. Okay, friends, so we are out of the oven and I've been playing around with things. So I have not touched our two kind of like hero pieces, but they're so cool. Like, look how they're still semi-translucent, and the color when the light comes through, because we used opaline and not just solid white, it pops when that light comes through. It's really cool. What I did with these two smaller test pieces is I basically I sanded them down a lot. So you'll see like how thick the translucent is on the bigger piece compared to this one. So I sanded it down on its face like this on my sanding pads, like figure eights. And then on this one, I buffed it so it has kind of a shine. I decided I don't love the shine, but you can do that. It just looks more plastic to me, as opposed to this, which I sanded the same amount with the same grits, which I'll tell you about in a second. But then I didn't buff this one. So you can see the difference in matte and shiny. And I liked the matte. I prefer the matte. That looks more realistic to me. Does this still look unfinished? Yes. So I'm gonna still play around with finishes, but what I've decided is I'm going to take these two pieces through the same sanding process as this, which is with these little sanding pads from Amazon. I need to get new ones because these are old and dull, but I started with a 320 to 400, and then I moved to a, what is this, 500 to 600, and then I jumped way up to a 1200 to 1500. But that gives it kind of that satiny finish. It's not like, you can't see the scratches, but it's just got a nice matte frosted glass type of look, which is what I was going for. You'll also probably be able to tell we lost some of that that powder that we put on it. So like the powder that's on the surface obviously gets buffed away, but if it was recessed into those crevices, then we were able to retain that. And then anything that was in between the layers, we were able to hold on to that too, which is fine. So it's still there, it's just a little bit less so, and I'm fine with it because I don't love the color. I'm not super obsessed with it. It's not the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but it does get across what I had in my head enough. So I'm okay with that. But I'm going to go ahead and sand these down, and then I'm going to experiment with these two pieces again on some finishing. I'm thinking some gold. Do I highlight the texture? Do I not? I don't know yet. But I will play around and then I will let you know where I land, and then we'll take a look at the final pieces. All right, friends, so what I have done, first of all, this is the sanded version of the larger piece. This is unsanded still, so you can kind of see the difference there. And what I have here is just some watered down warm white acrylic paint, just deco art, warm white. Because what I noticed as I was sanding was I liked the white getting kind of caught in the crevices. So I'm just going to apply that with my finger to my piece and try to get it in those crevices like so. And the adding water, you know, obviously makes it a little bit runnier, so it's more apt to get into those crevices as opposed to just a thick paint where it might sort of sit on top and not get forced in there, and you don't have to be as heavy-handed with it either. This is the one that I buffed, but just for experiment's sake, I want to keep these the same. And then I'm going to clear that off with my finger. You can use a paintbrush, like don't be like me, be crazy. Then let's experiment with the one I don't like. I'm gonna try to wipe it off of the surface, mostly. And see how that just, I don't know, something about it helps make the colors pop. And I feel like the light kind of bounces around in there a little bit more. It just feels right. Then I'm gonna just clean up the edges here, which I think I have a plan for the edges as well. That's cool. It almost looks like a little landscape. So then I'm gonna do the same with this and just wipe it off. Edges. And if you need to, if you get desperate, because that sat on there a little bit longer, I'm just going to take some isopropyl, spritz, 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 and wipe. And then you'll get a nice clean wipe there. Perfect. And I'll actually just do that here to clean it up a bit more. And around those edges. Man, if you get your thumbprint in there though, it'll leave a mark. So, okay. That is looking good to me. So you can see here. So then I am actually going to let these dry for a minute, but then I'm gonna pop them back in the oven to set that paint. So I'm just gonna leave it on the clay baking temperature. I'm still gonna tent them with foil so the translucent doesn't burn, but even just for like 5 minutes, I'm gonna set them in there. So I'm gonna sand this one. This one's already sanded. I just need to add the white acrylic, and then I'll show you what I'm thinking for the edge detail to lock it all in, and then we will be set. Okay, we are on the last step. So I played around with a couple of different finishes here. So we've got a gold and a silver. And truth be told, I'm liking the warmth that the gold adds. It also, on these pieces, I think will help complement the little areas where we have the powder coming through, because that's a warmer brown tone as well. The inks that I'm using to finish are both Kamenskaya. This one's in rich gold. This is in silver. They are beautiful. They are the super shining liquid gilding. I love, love, love them. They're great. So I think I will go ahead and finish them off with the gold. And I used to use full-blown Q-tips, but those were too big, and don't pay attention to these because those are messy. But you get more precision with these. And these are just, I have like literally thousands of these because I didn't realize how big my order was because it was so cheap on Amazon, but now I have a bazillion of them. Think they're for manicures, but I'll try to link those as well, but you probably don't need as many as I got. So, anywho, make sure that your ink is mixed up. And then what I like to do is just open the cap, brush the brush off to the side, flip her upside down, and then I like to go in and watch myself dip in. It can be hard to see, especially because the light's getting bad. But now I've got that covered, and I just sort of dab it on the side because it gets way more loaded than you would think. So I've got all that, and then I'm just gonna start here. Let's see if I can zoom in so I don't have to actually like bring it up to you. Okay, so please don't pay attention to my hands. They're terrible. I know, I know. But I'm just gonna start by going along the edges, and I'm not gonna worry about bringing it over the edge. I just want a nice, smooth, controlled F, not that. This is why we have paper towels and alcohol, isopropyl. And then we can just clean it up. So, oh, yeah, always have some cleanup materials handy because you'll slip. I do all the time. And you'll just go along your edges. And this ink is so good. It like blacks out any of the light that is coming through. It's really nice. And I think I have too much on my brush right now, so I'm gonna do that. And just keep on making my way. Well, I just want to show you, like, it's hard to show you, but the way the light hits this looks so much different now than this. It's like contained. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels better to me. Where did my, there we go. It's like, where did I leave off? Okay. So now I've made my way fully around. Everything looks nice. And I haven't come up on the side. So you don't, I'm gonna zoom out. Sorry, I'm zooming you in, I'm zooming you out. I'm just taking you everywhere right now. Okay, so you don't have to go any further than this, but I do like to bring it up on the edge just to give it like a little bit of framing. And so this, I try to be really careful about. I like to steady my hand on, you know, the work surface and just sort of come in at an angle and try my darndest to keep that angle even as I go. And this is going to be a little difficult because we've got all these crevices, right? So it's not going to look perfect. And that's, none of this is meant to look perfect, right? Talked about that. I want it to look kind of found. I want it to look, I don't know, like a treasure. Okay, so I'm just carefully trying to work my way around. And you'll kind of know when you need to reload on the ink because it'll start to look, it'll just look lighter. So you'll be able to tell. And if I can make it all the way around without screwing up, that'll be a miracle. Wow. I'm usually so excited at this point that I want to zoom through it, and then that's when I make mistakes. So in my bad lighting, that is how we are looking, and I love it. You can go in and do another coat on top if you want. It doesn't usually, in my opinion, need it, but again, since we're dealing with kind of an uneven surface, it might be a good idea to just revisit everything one more time, just to make sure you got all the little nooks and crannies. But yeah, that's really as simple as it is, you guys. Obviously, you would add your backs or drill holes or add magnets or whatever you're doing. I don't know if you want to make earrings or magnets or just little things for you to hold on to. But yeah, lots of different use cases for this technique and lots of different transfer papers for this technique. So I hope that you enjoyed it. If you didn't like the technique, I at least hope you learned something else valuable and fun and different, and that you feel inspired to go try something new. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I will do my best to address those. And if you did like this tutorial, please definitely check out my Patreon. I'll leave a link for that in the description as well. I have so many, I don't even know. It's getting out of control how many, it's probably approaching 40 different tutorials there that are all very different. I'm also realizing now that I did not even line the inside of this one, and you guys were probably screaming that from behind your screen, and I was just ignoring you rudely. For these, I usually like to come up from the back, which is very scary, and I don't like doing it, but we're gonna do it. I feel like I have no control, but I also realize I do have control, so it's a weird feeling when you come up from the back of the piece like this. And then I just angle it in as best I can. Hopefully you have an easier shape than this, but hey. I like to make things difficult for myself, I suppose. And I don't want to overdo it on the ink on the inside just because I don't want it to distract. So I'm keeping this one a little bit tamer. But I feel like that looks pretty decent. Okay, I'm not touching it anymore. So yeah, I'll leave you with some pretty photos. Join me on Patreon if you want. We've got a lot of fun people there doing some cool stuff. Check out the transfer papers. I have so many, so many, so many colors, so many seasons. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. Not only does that help me out and make me happy, it also indicates to me that you want more tutorials. So then I can give you what you want. All right, I'm gonna stop rambling. This video is long enough. I'll leave you with some pretty photos, and I hope to see you again soon.